What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Apartment 113 podcast, where we talk with cool folks in the cannabis and psychedelics industry to learn about their projects and celebrate their successes. My name is Rob Sanchez, and we're back with episode 5. Today we're joined by Daryl Jendras, CPA. Daryl is the managing director of Green Rush Accounting and Tax. With his decades of experience as an accountant, he's turned his sights now on the cannabis industry. Join us for some interesting conversation today and find out more at greenrushtax.com. Welcome to the show, dude. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you, thinking highly of me and, fitting the cool kids mantra.
Hey, dude, the industry takes expertise from every corner, and the accounting and tax knowledge is something that can be quickly overlooked in business.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Especially if you do it, trying to do it too quick or not too thorough. My main thing and what I usually say is I just try to help companies maximize their profits while minimizing their liabilities. So it's just, taking your time, going slow, making sure you're doing the accounting right so there's no surprises when it comes to the end. And there's no way to do any shortcuts when it comes to accounting.
Is that standard for every niche or type of accounting?
Yeah.
The numbers don't lie.
Every industry, exactly. Numbers don't lie.
I'm familiar with the double entry or the dual entry accounting that ERP systems use to track inventory costs and like profit and loss, some things like that. But there's so much on the accounting piece of those systems that I would come running to folks like you when I was working on. I would go looking for my CPA.
Right.
How long has Green Rush Accounting been operating, or how long have you been catering your services to the cannabis industry?
Well, I have 30 years of state and local tax and accounting experience, and I'm based in Illinois, and I can and actually my background is I can do all verticals in all states, going all the way to like industrial hemp, the beverage side, and then of course your typical dispensaries or any kind of plant touching and transportation. So, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I've been in Illinois. Illinois has been legal, rec side since 2020. So I started that up in 2019 when they had passed the bill to get it legal. And then once I realized Illinois was moving slow, it's like, you know what? Let me make friends across the country and see where it takes me.
Kind of open the doors there. Are there any states now that you're focusing on or a little heavier involved in outside of Illinois? Or is it still just a general statewide approach?
General, multi-state, on the CBD side, almost every state, has, allows the CBD. And then, of course, there's, that recent development with, them saying Delta 9, isn't federally legal and all that. So it's never ending. It's, or how can I put it? It's a constantly evolving network of issues that, depending on each state's legislature, even the federal side, it just continues to change, by the week.
Just ever-changing landscape. How do accountants and folks stay on those trends? Does it really take the research and the legwork to look into those regulations, or are there ways to stay tapped into changes in the laws or things like that?
Yeah, I use a lot of I use a couple online businesses that post articles, and when you see those things pop, then those quickly spread across LinkedIn and Facebook of like, hey, look what's happening. It's like, sort of knew that a couple hours before you posted, but hey, that's all right. I'm not going to race and make multiple posts, but yeah, fortunately, there's a lot of people that are in the know that turn around and post that stuff. So it just
adamant about those changes.
Yes.
Right.
Because it usually, it has an impact somehow on most of these companies. So Yeah, if you can
Oh,
just
definitely,
kill
right.
it.
On their bottom line, everything with taxes just can be such a concern when you're dealing with shrinking margins or looking to be as profitable as you possibly can, right? You need to turn towards everything in the operation to see really where that savings could be, or
Hmm.
where maybe some money is lost or is
Right.
stored that you didn't know about.
Right. Yeah, there's just it's amazing, how you look at different companies' books and you're just like, oh, you could do this a little bit better. You could have a little bit better profit, or, some of the things don't make sense. It's like, all right, how can we help? How can we help improve? And that's the main thing is, as being an accountant and as being a CPA, you're an advocate for the business. You want them to maximize their profits while minimizing their liabilities. You don't want to be overly aggressive when it comes to tax law and that. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase 280E and that, it's
Definitely keeping you busy on that
right,
one.
right. Yeah, it's just interesting the questions you get, every day or once a week where I'm like, wow, it's an interesting perspective, but sorry, you can't do it because, you're plant touching and you just can't.
Right. Good old US codes laying
Mm-hmm.
down a little bit of red tape, but just
Right.
enough to keep things interesting.
Exactly.
Are there aspects of the cannabis industry that are perhaps easier to track the finances within or track the accounting, or do the different verticals of cannabis like retail, cultivation, manufacturing, do they all have their nuances that make them unique for cannabis?
Right. Yeah, because there's somewhere there's a lot of, like the cultivators need a lot of, inventory controls and
Yeah.
and that on
Would
the
would they typically
plantation.
track work in progress inventory as their
Mm-hmm.
plants are growing, so they have kind of an estimated cost for weeks
Mm-hmm.
that are or plants that are 5 weeks old versus 12 or so on?
Right. Yeah, it's key to just do good inventory counts and just monitoring everything because you know how everyone staggers their grow cycles and all that, and it's just okay, are we
Perpetual.
growing? You know.
Yeah, definitely. That is easier said than done, maybe even assigning those numbers to the value of a plant throughout its life cycle. Is there an approach that you would take to help a cultivator estimate that cost, or sorry, estimate that value? Do you look more at their output, like how much weight do we harvest on average per plant, and then use that as the kind of the cost?
Yeah, and see, and that's the thing too, because if you look at it, each plant is kind of unique, where it's like, and how you're, uh, in the indoor grow compared to an outdoor grow, can have different.
Different material needs or even different resources required there.
Right, and then on top of that too, it's like you're looking at it on the cultivator side. It's like, okay, how's your lighting? Is it too humid? Is there too much stress on the plants? It's a science to try to like maximize that stuff. But it's like if you can go through a couple grow cycles and if you can see things being consistent, then yeah, you could sort of anticipate what you're seeing.
So kind of
But there's
achieving that consistency is the first challenge before you
right.
can really accurately track the cost or even project with more confidence.
Right. And what I've seen a lot lately is companies using barcodes for each plant and just, scanning them so they can count it each month. And,
Some
there's
gray
ways you can
area,
see,
perhaps.
yeah, there's ways you can sort of see, how can you grow and how are things going? Is this, you know, are you doing everything right to maximize your yield off of that?
Right, right. Are there any systems that you would recommend businesses use to make sure they're tracking the right costs or the right numbers? I mean, do standard systems like QuickBooks or Sage Intact work for the cannabis industry, or does it require really that extra Excel sheets or extra systems or services to track?
You could, there's metric out there, there's BioTrack, to do that. So I mean, everyone has, it also depends too on the size of your grow. You know, if you're a small grow, do you really want to invest, deep into, an overhead cost, or
just to track your
just to track
just to track your costs.
Yeah, or can you do a simple spreadsheet if if you're small? I mean, and that's the thing that's really unique about this industry is it's everyone's like a pioneer, everyone's like a trailblazer, in most of these states, that aren't legacy states. These are all in the startup mode, and that there's some states that like here in Illinois, if you have a medical card, you can grow up to 5. And I talk to some friends and they just tell me of what they're pulling out of what their plants
5
doing,
plants.
and I'm like, oh my God, you're getting that much out of that much flower out of that. That's
You can tell when some of the litigation is created maybe without knowledge of cultivation. They don't understand truly 5 outdoor plants can be monstrous harvests.
exactly. Or like when I was trying to grow mine and they were indoors, and I'm just like, oh man, this isn't a green thumb experience for me. It's just,
Oh man, first trial run didn't go so well.
No.
Nice.
No.
What kind of plants were you growing, or what strains?
It was the Girl Scout, the
Tasty.
the Kush Girl Scout one. And yeah,
Nice. Hey, it's always a learning curve, right? You got to
Yeah.
get that first few cycles out of the way.
yeah. I'll get there. I'll try again. I just felt bad. I went out of town and it wound up being a week trip, and yeah.
Oh, the ladies didn't survive.
No. I felt bad.
Yeah, it's I kind of liken home growing to like keeping a saltwater aquarium. Like it's not a normal fish where you can just drop some food in there every week. There's a lot more like extra around it. It can be a really rewarding experience, of course, but definitely time consuming. Like a little pet or hobby project.
Right. And I don't know if based on where you're at, one of my buddies here is starting to get into mushrooms and that too. So it's interesting seeing
Oh
him
yeah,
working on growing that.
cultivating some mushrooms can be interesting as well. The yields can be really high out of a few tubs with the right humidity settings there. Thank you to some hippies in Minnesota that taught me how to do that. But yeah, I think I'm excited to see how those laws spread and kind of how the industries expand. There seems to be this like cannabis entrepreneur and cannabis business trend that now they're cannabis and psychedelics entrepreneurs, or cannabis and mushrooms businesses. So I think that the innovation there is just right around the corner as all these companies dig in. The interesting thing is, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think the really interesting thing is, now that you're starting to see Oregon and Colorado, legalize the mushrooms, it's like, you know what? Maybe give it 6 years, 4, 6 years. It'll probably, slowly start spreading across the country too,
Yeah,
like
I
how
mean,
it
it's just
started.
these little experiments that are state specific before too long, like is as wild as the rest of the country may think they are, have a way of sort of influencing the states around them and, empowering more groups further away, things like that.
And also too, just trying to break the stigma of everything. That's the disappointing thing, because you go back 20, 30 years, you're talking mushrooms, and then you see some of these movies and just people like losing their mind and
Just make it so wild, and it's like as fun or really as crazy as it could be. There's a totally different level of appreciation or consumership that is actually more therapeutic or helpful for folks, not just fear and loathing in Las Vegas, seeing lizard people everywhere. If you find that level, you'll see the lizard people, but you don't need to go that far. Yeah, there's actually a book by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and it's called Skin in the Game, about hidden asymmetries in life. he talks about like systems and cultures and how like minorities or small groups of advocates really start to change the majority. I think that we've seen that happen with the cannabis industry, and it's just begun with the psilocybin like kind of therapy clinics, and I even saw a ketamine clinic and just other kind of explorations there and the benefits that some of these medicines can have. And probably for good reason there. I think there are people perhaps suffering or, dealing with ailments and things that could be made better, or maybe just people that could be a little happier with a microdose or something like that.
Right, and especially too, getting people off of opioids and all that other stuff. That's so key.
Yes, and other detrimental pharmaceuticals, right? Get on something a little more natural.
Yeah, and I think that's how I found my calling of just getting into this. And you just look at this going, there's a better way to, self-medicate and that.
Right. I think that's the real kind of community approach and like that medicine perspective that cannabis brings with it, and that hopefully the psychedelic market will kind of be embracing as well. The differentiator, I think, that I really wonder how the markets will address it is that with cannabis, as a regular consumer is buying weekly, fairly regularly, monthly maybe if they're slow, but often. But with psychedelics, it might be hard to have that like regular consumer market, and if you have it, it's only a microdose level, but you're able to cultivate and produce at such quantities in scale, or folks even with home grows produce so much that they have to give it away. I don't know if the market will have that same pop as cannabis really did, but what do you think about that from your kind of perspective, or seeing some of the numbers of the cannabis businesses as well?
Yeah, the cannabis. Well, I mean, I think you see, and we're talking 2023, where it's just, it's depending on what part of the state, they're either in a recession and trying to go in survivor mode, or you go into some other states where New York is just opening up, and the East Coast is trying to grow. But if you look back at California, Oregon, they're struggling to survive.
A lot of acquisitions and closed shops and reduced margins, huh?
Yeah, so it's just it's a really. I was talking to someone about it last week on a Zoom call, and they were talking about going through and just getting distressed assets and that, and I go, but here I am on the other side of the Mississippi River, where it's just like, yeah, I'm talking to all these social equity companies, looking for grants and putting together stuff and looking to invest and looking to grow their company, and I'm just like, yeah, it's a really unique business environment on the cannabis side right now.
It can be so different from 3 states away at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
even the general feel for the community, where California and other West Coast maybe are getting a little burned and tired of some of the litigation. States like you mentioned, New York or Missouri, people are clamoring. They're running to the doors. It's business finally. They're happy to have the industry, and it's kind of maybe just a necessary evil that as that taxation and litigation gets all cemented, we inevitably go a little too far. And hopefully that's the lesson that's being learned now with some of the West Coast states that can just be avoided on the East. If not, maybe we're in for a kind of a cyclical thing as the rest of the states kind of get that same oversupply or the same kind of tax issues.
And that's where I just try to guide some of the clients I have. It's just like, doing comparisons of, like the state and local tax in California compared to, some of the other states of like, with California.
If you were to set up shop here versus there, those kind of conversations.
Right.
Yeah. Before we started, you mentioned that you work with customers very early in their process, even with their pitch decks. How does that experience differ as an accountant, helping them project and look at their business model versus coming in to maybe clean a little bit and help with their numbers after the fact?
No, I really enjoy doing the pitch decks, and especially with the companies that are pre-revenue. that's usually the biggest challenge. And you sort of look at what they're putting down on their pitch deck, and it's like, okay, you don't have any customers in this, but you say you need X amount of dollars, and then you tell us once you get the X amount of dollars, that your first month of revenue, you're going to do like $250,000. Well, God bless you if you could do that, but that's not the norm. You just can't go, 0 to 100 miles an hour off of, a standstill. So it's just,
kind of tempering some of that business ambition or that excitement from an entrepreneur, but also steering them down the best path.
Right. To a more realistic budget, a more realistic, growing your business. Because a lot of these businesses, you've never. I would say I've probably come across 75% of the businesses I talk to are just starting up, because I'm in states that are just opening up, or just freshly opened, or typical Illinois and their slow political bureaucracy. It takes a while to open things up, and it's just it's slow. So you just have to be slow and just be realistic, put together numbers, and then hopefully if you're looking at like an investor or like an angel investor, if it makes sense, they can look at it. They'll rebuild like the numbers that we put together, and then it's just it's like we're doing right now in our podcast. It's an interview. So tell me what you're gonna do with the money. Because you'd picture it. Having a teenage kid saying, "Hey, give me $100." Okay, well, what are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna go and invest it in an online sports book? Are you, going out to buy a dress shirt for, a dance,
So really justifying that ask, because in the cannabis industry, it can be quite an ask for investment, especially cultivation, manufacturing. I imagine even at a baseline, getting over $1 million and can be required to set up a full facility if you have to do rebuilds and things like that.
Right, and especially too, a lot of the social equities are already at a disadvantage. So it's like, what can you do to help them, mentor them, and just work behind the scenes with them to put together good numbers and be realistic.
Definitely, yeah, and helping folks out that may not have the resource or the capital to buy those services can be a serious boon, man. That can be so helpful in just getting businesses started and allowing them to test their ideas, allowing that dream to go down the road a little further and a little safer, right? Putting that accounting and tax seatbelt on, making sure they're not projecting wild numbers.
Right, and it's good too, because I enjoy learning about their businesses and that. And it's like, okay, are they really serious, or is it like something where it's just like totally off the wall? So the ones where I can really understand, they're passionate, but they're bringing something to market that isn't out there.
Actually bringing that unique service or other angle,
product or whatnot. Those are the ones that, I'll stand behind you. And you know what? If I have to sacrifice a couple hours of my time, that's fine. Let's see if you grow, and if you guys take off, I'm just gonna ride alongside you. That's
just
the best
partner
part.
and make it work. Yeah, I definitely like that approach for services in the cannabis industry, as I think there's so many nuances and little situational things with whether it be business owners or internal politics or state, federal issues. It's something where once you find good partners, you kind of want to hang on to them. I think similar to how the cannabis industry worked before legalization, people banded together, and there was a lot of trust and kind of community and camaraderie there, even though there was other aspects maybe that weren't so great.
Right. And that's the best part too, is if you get in early with these, if they can survive a year and then they really start getting their feet underneath them and start growing, and then it's great. Then you just ride along forever. You've made a new family member. You're part of their family and so on, and here we go.
Right. How long after starting a business are businesses planning to be profitable in the cannabis industry? I think that's obviously a very broad question, but
Right.
is there maybe an average that you would temper somebody with, like, hey, take it easy. These first 6 months are going to be getting out of the red, or the first year even.
Yeah, that's where we sit down and go through. We do like what's called pro forma statements and just put out, what do we think we're going to estimate revenue to be. It's sort of like budgets are set in stone. Pro formas you can change, and it's just, hey, let's put these numbers together. Let's look at it. But you know what? If you want to tweak them up or down, that's going to tweak up or down, your profitability. Or, hey, do I need to reduce some of my expenses? You don't want to lose any headcount. You want to keep all your employees in there, and that, depending on, like if you're a dispensary, you're going to need, at least, 2 customer service people greeting you at the door, and have, 4 bud tenders out there and someone else floating around. So, you're always going to have at least, probably 8 people on the floor. But it's like the same thing too, like when you're growing, you're going to have to trim, almost every, go through every plant, go through a cycle. And it's just, the employees are the key. So how can we, if we're going to struggle, where can we, take some of the expenses off? In that.
I see, without impacting those folks that are doing the work and really creating that service or quality.
Right, yeah, because you always need those. And you don't, especially nowadays, I think if you can, it's totally different when, 20, 30 years when I was growing up, I think I found like one of my pay stubs, I think I was getting paid like $7 an hour. Nowadays.
What kind of work was that?
It was just, like an internal auditor at a bank, or just, temporary accounting,
Yeah. It's come a long way than what the inflation and what all of that has been. I think one of the first jobs I had was $6.25 an hour at a lumber yard, where I would go and pull the like 2x4s and bags of cement for people. I was working hard, man. $6 an hour, $1 a minute.
The best thing is, it was probably, you didn't even have to go to the gym. You're throwing enough weight around,
It was definitely a physical one.
Getting your workout in.
And now, at this point, consulting services can be astronomical at times. And that's where, again, I think having that social equity angle, or being able to bring that expertise and make it available at every level is invaluable there for the industry, and kind of getting it started on the right foot, right? Not starting with too corporate or too traditional kind of business.
And that's the thing too. The way I look at it is, with all the experience I've gathered, over, almost 3 decades, give back to these people, because you know what? Where was I 30 years ago? I was just starting out too. And, I had some people help guide me and all this other stuff. And I just look at it as, hey, I want to just give back and just help.
Yeah, totally. There's that intrinsic value there. Just seeing those projects succeed, or seeing the value others can get there. Especially with a honed skill, doing something for so long, it may not feel that important. But if the skill is that valuable, man, it can be useful. On the accounting side, I've been building cannabis software for the last 4 or 5 years, and only a few software companies or services have really tried to cross that bridge into the accounting world. Some of them already have the backbone, like Microsoft Dynamics Nav, or established chart of accounts and general ledger features, but other apps are sort of home built. They're coming up from the ground. Do you have any advice for software companies or for services that are trying to bridge that accounting gap, or do you think it's something that still lies best in the accounting realm, maybe that shouldn't be included in software?
No, I think always never take no for an answer, and just like, you know what? Hey, let's see what the best practices are that some of my competitors are doing. Can I blend that in, but could I make my product better than my competitors? So it's just an interesting perspective. It's like, And then if you become successful enough, then yeah, one of those larger, the equivalent of Microsoft or whomever, Google or whatever, if your product's good enough, they'll come on by and just acquire it and just, import it into their products.
Right. So the innovation, the room for innovation is potentially still there from an accounting perspective.
In everything, in my opinion, in everything, never,
awesome. Yeah.
never give in or give up. Just say, okay, what can I offer that my competitors don't have? On the software side.
Try and find that differentiator, right?
Yeah, you might already have it in your mind. It might already be on a whiteboard.
Right.
It's just I don't see this, so let's try this.
Definitely, yeah. Once you've seen enough businesses or enough examples in the same industry, I think you are quickly able to read between the lines. And I can't imagine the lens that you have as an accountant to really look at the paperwork and read through the lines.
Right.
Someone can give you the story of their business, or they could provide the paperwork and the financial details. And I think it feels like a magic craft to be able to discern that insight from the reports and from those statements.
Yeah, I would say it's more of like, the 100-piece puzzle or maybe like a 1,000-piece puzzle box. Just dump out all the paperwork, put the puzzle
so
together.
It's not necessarily this nice stack of paper. It's a
shoebox. Or just, hey, here's all my receipts, or hey, here's a report here, help me out.
There's always, you got to start somewhere, right, to learn that better accounting practices.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's
awesome.
It's good times. I enjoy it. I enjoy this industry. I enjoy, how friendly it is. I mean, it's totally different than anything I've seen before once I got in.
And before cannabis, you were doing accounting for kind of all industries, or was there another niche or focus?
It was all non-canna, just, you name the industry. I did all industries, all states.
Oh, awesome.
So I've seen a lot of stuff. I don't know if you were at MJ Biz last year. I was the one geeking out on the second floor at all the stainless steel and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, manufacturing. I know this stuff. Let's talk about how how you're doing your extraction and all this other stuff, or how you're doing your packaging up your flour and that. That's what I was geeking out on.
Man, wasn't BizCon crazy this year? It was just nuts. Huge. This was the first year with double floors. For folks who haven't been, MJ BizCon's the annual B2B cannabis conference in Vegas, and it is just massive. You could have probably wandered that floor this last year for most of the day without backtracking.
Shoot, I mean, I didn't even make it all the way through, and I was there for every day. I never made it to the end, because as soon as you walked in, it was as far as you could see before you could get to the end of it. And then they're at the second floor.
Really something else there, yeah. Are there other business conferences that you were going to here for cannabis? I know I saw you spoke at CannaCon last year.
Yeah, I spoke at CannaCon last year. I'm going to try my best to see if I can speak at the Cannabis conference in Vegas.
I really like that conference too.
Yeah.
It's been very scientifically minded, or it brings a lot of kind of analytical insight to the industry and not a lot of brand and packaging advertisements.
And I was enjoying that too. I enjoyed sitting through a lot of the cultivation classes, because I really wanted to learn more and more about the plant and all that other stuff. And it's just, it's incredible, because, like you said, part of the cultivation's the accounting side of that too, and just, your inventory and just monitoring the plants and everything.
Right, and everything that goes in to really create that inventory is like one big manufacturing bill of materials, like a crazy multi-week bomb. Right.
And that was, and just walking the floor at MJ Biz, you could see all the different kinds of vendors, and a lot of them were, focused on cultivation and all that. I'm looking forward to next year, and looking forward to meeting you in person at one of these conferences.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure we'll cross paths here in a con coming up. I'm going to Lucky Leaf, Kansas City, here towards the end of the month, and a few other Lucky Leafs this year. but then I'll definitely be Cannabis Conference in Vegas and MJ.
Mm-hmm.
But man, their conferences are springing up almost faster than you could
Right.
travel to them. It's wonderful to see them focused on different regions and
Mm-hmm.
have the same industries there.
Yeah, yeah, because I'll be out at in DC for the National Cannabis Festival. Towards the end of April, after 420 that weekend.
Oh, awesome!
Talk
Yeah,
about
I need to add that one to the map as well. There's so much to be aware of in this industry right now. It seems like if you were willing to, you could be on the road almost constantly.
Right, yeah. Just making new friends.
Definitely, yeah. Well, thank you, man, for jumping on the show today and talking shop. I think that there's plenty to be said more about accounting and the tax necessities for cannabis businesses. And I think we're grateful to have folks like you and companies like Green Rush providing that for the industry.
Yeah.
Where can folks contact you or reach out about your services and accounting and tax knowledge?
Yeah, I have a website. It's greenrushtax.com. And then you can always email me at daryl@greenrushtax.com. Yeah, and
Excellent.
I always turn around my emails as quick as I can and all that. So yeah, just interested in learning more about everyone trying to start up and the ones that have been established. Keep in touch.
Thank you for listening to the Apartment 113 podcast. For more information about the show and our range of services, visit apt113.com. We offer certified ganjier services, cannabis operations, and agile product management for software development. With over a decade of experience in the cannabis industry, Apartment 113 is here to help.